Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 98 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League Show podcast. I'm your host, the self-proclaimed FPL guru, Alex Rex, and joining me today are my usual suspects of Scott Williams and a bit of a gutted Barry Stokes after Wales's penalty shootout. Barry, how are you feeling?
Disappointed. Disappointed myself, to be honest, for wearing this unlucky shirt. We wore it at yours, and every time we lost, we wore this shirt. So my fault, not Dan James's fault for missing the penalty. It's my fault. I'll take full responsibility for all the Welsh fans out there. It was my fault for wearing this jersey.
Either that or Leeds fans for backing Dan James. What a season he's had otherwise. Scott, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Thought England attacking wise looked excellent last night, so that's given me some hope if we can just shore up at the back. Quite a lot of promise, and I'm glad we didn't lose the game because my God, we did not deserve to lose that game.
I'm going to quickly. I'll do the socials, and then I wanted to touch quickly on England and briefly Wales before we move on to the full on FPL chat. But don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. Off my pod, All in Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and I might do a TikTok at some point this calendar year. Who knows? And don't forget to give us 5 stars where you get your podcast from. Click the bell, and you get the updates when we send the new episodes out. And also don't forget to like our video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel and join our ever-growing following, which is very nice to see. And a couple of new followers this week. So thanks very much to all of those guys who do follow us. Let's start with England. Have a brief conversation about them, Scott. I know neither of us watched the game live against Brazil, but I know we watched the game against Belgium. Did you see the highlights of the Brazil game? And just what did you make of the team overall, and who's on the plane and who's not in these games that don't matter, but obviously do?
The Brazil game, I saw the results, saw the comments, and thought I'd save some time and not bother watching the highlights. It didn't seem like there was too many good things, I guess, to come out of it. But I was really impressed last night. Like I said, if it wasn't for a couple of errors, a tight offside for a disallowed goal from us as well, a couple of other decisions here and there, we'd have definitely won that game. And don't get me wrong, it should be a game. Belgium are not the team they were a few years ago. Didn't have KDB playing either. Yeah. So we should be winning that game at home anyway. But yeah, I thought we looked really good attacking wise. We've got players on the ball now that just know amazing. So a couple of little things that I saw Jude Bellingham do, where he's just got the confidence. He's got so much confidence. But just give me the ball, I'm going to make something happen. Same with Phil Foden. Same with Mainu again. So good last night on his full international debut, by the way. He's not even played in England under 21 game yet, which I think is hilarious. Just popped straight up. He looked so composed, and I'll be honest, if he carries the season on like he has been doing the last few weeks, he has to start alongside Declan Rice for me. Has to, because like we mentioned on the pod, he gives you that going forward as well. Him and Declan Rice are both comfortable going forward, as well as putting the hard yards in going back. So yeah, attacking wise, we looked really good. Defensive, shaky, but Stones went off after 10 minutes. We've not got some of our key defenders in there. There was no Harry Maguire, who again is good for England. So we just need to make sure we cut out the individual errors. But yeah, last night I enjoyed the game. I thought we played well, and it's giving me confidence on the back of some shaky England results.
I was saying to Baz before the podcast started how a lot of people talk about these friendlies as if they don't really matter, but at the end of the game last night, everyone was like, Dunk doesn't make it anymore. Kobe Mainoo has to be on the plane. So does Maddison. Look at Watkins' desire. Tony has to be in for penalties. It's just amazing, isn't it? The heat, how much everyone reacts to these things. Yep, totally agree with you, Scott. Anyway, on that one, I won't labour the point and don't disagree with anything that you've just said there at all. Baz, you obviously watched the Wales game, had the heartbreak on your side. Anything you'd like to say on the platform that you've got about your boys?
Well, I thought they played really well the first game against Finland. Absolutely destroyed them and played a really good attacking football and had a good balance to the team as well. And then he plays Kiefer Moore against Poland, maybe because Poland probably and equal opponents with us, especially with the rankings. We're 29, I think they're 31. And I think he should have just stuck to his guns and played how he started with Finland. I think Kiefer Moore, yeah, he's great up front at holding up the play, but international football, he's a bit like Peter Crouch. He keeps obviously putting his arms back and doing that, and he commits so many fouls. I think he committed about 5 or 6 last night, and he just disrupts the game. Whereas obviously if you've got Johnson and Brooks and Wilson going forward, it looks a lot better. And I think Page made a mistake on that front on that one. But who am I to criticise that he's under scrutiny, and I don't think he should be, because life without Bale has been reverently good, to be honest, compared to what we thought it was going to be, especially when we lost against Armenia and Turkey and things like that. And he's changed it. He's obviously gone tactically. He's gone, right, let's go 5 at the back, be hard to beat, and obviously have that pace going forward with obviously Dan James, bless him, and obviously Harry Wilson's looked a really good player. Going obviously forward, and his link-up play, he's took the mantle of Aaron Ramsey for my eyes. Everything potentially goes through him. And Brooks, when he came on, looked really good last night, but then he got taken off. I don't know if he had a little niggle or he was just tired, because obviously he's come back from obviously beating cancer and that. So yeah. So my take on it, it's a long wait to the World Cup qualifiers. I think it's 12 months now, but fair play. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be cheering on England anyway, and hopefully, I don't want to say, but hopefully it's coming home for them.
Yeah, thank you, Baz.
Very
Very nice touch at the end. So let's reflect on one of the worst game weeks ever, game week 29. So let's go to manager of the week. First of all, well done to Darren Hallam. Now, I had a question this week about free hits that came in. I know that we've sort of had a bit of time to digest the horrendous game week that we had. And it was very much a conversation about, do you always suggest not using a free hit in a game week where there's such a little amount of fixtures and where we think it's going to be low scoring? Is it never worth it in these weeks? Free hit hasn't been really around for that many seasons, but I mean, we called this a little way off that we thought it was going to be a lower scoring week, but I think the short answer to that question is there's just, absolutely not. It's never the wrong thing. It's all team dependent. Like me and Baz and I could work our teams around it. So probably wasn't worth using the free hit because we had the key players. Whereas Scott decided to not work around it and use his free hit. Neither of them were a mistake. Neither of those things were the wrong thing to do, and neither of those things were the right thing to do. We can all be very outcome focused on these things. It just depends how you want to play it. And the long story short is it was never the wrong answer this week, because you can see the manager of the week this week, who was ranked 8,000th in the world this week out of 11 million managers, which is pretty amazing, is Darren Hallam, and he got 47 points on his free hit. So he absolutely smashed everyone to pieces by playing his free hit. He just happened to have Muniz, Robinson, and Gibbs-White, who were a couple of the only players that returned. So, if, let's say, for example, Fulham weren't playing Spurs, they were playing just another team. Let's just take Spurs out and they're playing another team. Then people might have picked these guys. Just the way it is. But let's run through his team. Areola, Collins, Robinson, Pau Torres, Gibbs-White, Johnson, Maddison, Son, captain, Muniz, Watkins, and Tony. Good team. Baz, what was your take on last week and because you threw a lovely grenade into the Facebook chat to just wind everyone up and get some people talking, which I did enjoy. It got people with very divided opinions, and obviously I've just given mine that I don't think it mattered either way. I think we're just all talking in hindsight. What did you think?
To me, I looked at it and thought, let's get the key players, because there's not a lot of fixtures out there that I thought, oh yeah, I definitely need 3 of their players. I definitely need so many of their players, but I haven't got them players already. So I was kind of swayed after, I think, 4 weeks leading to this game week. I was like, right, I'm going to plan to just not free hit, because I've got majority of the big hitters and the popular players that are going to be in most people's free hits. But obviously, for players like Scott, that obviously just take it game week by game week and don't think forward or think one game week forward, then it's good to have a potential differential free hit team and try and pick up some points, because everyone's going to have these, obviously Madison and Son, for example, and Watkins and Tony. Whereas these other players that are different, such as Robinson and Muniz, hardly anyone had them. And look, obviously, how they performed. Yes, they were playing against Spurs, but Muniz was in great form. So why wouldn't you have him?
He was on the list. He was on the list of 6, wasn't he? Like, in terms of forwards, him, Fofana, Tony, Watkins, Visser, and Morris. It was going to be 3 of those 6, wasn't it?
Correct. And that's the way of doing a potential free hit. You can go proper, well, I'm just going to have these and have everyone's like favourites. Or you can have a few of them favourites like Darren Allen's done, and obviously 8,862 rank. So that's pretty impressive on that front. And that's because he had these different players. And obviously hence why obviously in my differential draft, I always go for these under 1 players, because some of them go under the radar and actually you get some good points. I know it's week by week, and this FPL challenge is going to be kind of my forte. Hopefully they come up with one where it's like you have to pick under 5 players only. I'll be in my element. I'll be loving it. But it's one of them, and it all depends on how your team was set up, like you were saying, Alex. And for me, obviously, I was thinking, well, there's no point in me free hitting because there was no big hitters in there, big teams that I didn't have any players already. So for me, that's my take on it, and it worked out all right. Yeah, I could have kept Richarlison, for example, because obviously he had a flag on him, and obviously he picked up 1 point, but I transferred him out and took a -4 and got Madison in, thinking, I might potentially get an assist, and he nearly scored as well. It just went wide of the post, so I thought that would have been great if that happened, but it is what it is. And obviously I'd said, I knew I shouldn't have done it, and Scott was having a dig at me saying, well, if you knew that, why did you do it?
Captain Hindsight struck again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Scott, I've got your team on the screen right now for YouTube watchers, and obviously I'll run through it for podcast listeners. Your game week rank was only 2.9 million in the world out of 10.7, and you got 16 points. That's how ridiculous. The average was 12. I mean, that's how ridiculous the game week was. It's the lowest average I think they've ever had. But Flecken, obviously, Reguilon, the nice -3. Doherty, who went off injured, I think, at half-time. Porro, Bowen, Porro, who obviously conceded 3. Bowen, Son, captain, blanked. Barkley, Madison, Tony, Morrison, Watkins. And every single player blanked, including you then got one player that didn't play 60, 2 yellow cards, and a red card. So couldn't really go much worse. Your take on the week? What do you think about the whole situation, free hit and whatever?
Yeah, it's what's previously really, but I've kind of touched on it there. If you're forward planning, absolutely, you can. Most people, on average, that are still actually playing the game would have free hit it, I would have thought, if they had it available this week. So your differential tactic.
Can I just say on that, and just to cut in, Scott, on that, because this week was the week. There was a statistic that had it's the most used free hit, I think, in FPL history was this week.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it was always going to be the differential was always going to be not free hitting. So, if I'd planned enough, that's the way to go, because you'll always want to probably be a little bit different in a game week like this. But at the end of the day, I called it that there'd be goals this game week. I can't remember the score lines. I don't know if you can just scroll down. I'm pretty confident there was quite a few that, there's a number of goals there. And I remember watching the Spurs game, and Madison and Son both having chances in that game. Spurs, I remember, they were brilliant in the first half. I don't know how they've not scored in this game now. I'm looking back on it. And then Fulham were fantastic the second half. think West Ham had, that was it. Bowen had 2 goals ruled out, I believe. So again, it's these things where, I think, I don't think you had Madison. I don't think maybe many people that didn't free hit brought him in. Maybe he didn't have a Bowen. So actually, it's these small little things where actually we'd be looking at this and going, well, actually, maybe I should have free hit. So it is a small thing, but it just is what it is. It's a game at the end of the day. We were discussing, I threw it into our little chat on the Saturday morning, saying, is Reguilon going to play? Looks like he's going to play. I've done a bit of research. He's going to play. And we were debating. I was like, maybe get someone else and maybe not. Stuck with Reguilon. And then the game week is over almost in the first 10 minutes when he gets sent off. But it is what it is. I will always say, the last thing I will say on it, if anyone got like genuinely, not getting too deeper about it, I've said this many times before, this game used to really affect me. It got to a point where it was actually annoying me to watch football games. Please just remember it's a game, everyone that's listening. This season's, it's not affected me because I've took it as it's a game. It is what it is. Football is one of my favourite things in the world. I'm not going to let it affect me where I don't enjoy football. So if you do have a bad game week, have a bit of a moan, but don't let it affect your weekend. It's not worth it.
I think Spurs had the highest XG of the season, by the way, without scoring a goal. It's stuff like that silly, but I totally agree with that sentiment, Scott, because it's just dumb luck. Dumb luck this weekend. But Burnley actually win a game. They've won one game at home all season. Like that.
Even though that Reguilon challenge, I don't think it's a regular.
This is it again. It's
was
the
a
debate.
joke. Yeah,
but also then Fofana scored in the game, and we debated you could go with Fofana. You didn't back Brentford's defence that much. You put Reguilon in for his attacking input, didn't you? You could have easily had Fofana in your team. Luton Forest 1-1, relatively predictably scoreline. Didn't Burke? Is it not Burke who scored his first ever Premier League goal? The Luton scorer. Can't remember what it was, but whoever it was his first ever Premier League goal. Berry, who's Berry? Never heard of him. Luke Berry, never heard of the guy. Well done, congratulations, scored your first goal. But he was 0% owned in the game. No one has it. No one has it.
Like my Clark shout, that.
Exactly. And then Fulham beat Spurs 3-0. We know Fulham are a weird team. They're just a weird team. And so are Spurs this year. It could go either way. And West Ham, we said the goals disallowed, and who knows. But yeah, I think the point is that, these sorts of fixtures and these sorts of game weeks, I try not to use a chip if I can do, because I think they're going to be low scoring. But my God, people who didn't free hit ran like absolute God. I think, how many points did you get, Scott? 16. And I didn't free hit, and I got 21.
I got 16 as well.
You got 16 as well. But I didn't free it because, and I had one player that didn't even play for me. How did I even get that? Because you got, so I just didn't get the minus. Every player.
I'd have taken that Haaland over Reguilon.
Well, this is it. I literally got 21 points because I didn't have players who got a minus. I got every player blanked, and I still got more points than you.
I had the minus. I got 16 as well. Don't know how. Probably had similar team to Scott, to be honest.
This is the thing; it's just ridiculous, isn't it? But right, so the big announcement is we've had the double game weeks basically sorted out for the rest of the season. So let's get on to this, and we'll get on to Mr. Krellin's graphic, because it is the best graphic to use, in my opinion. So what I will say is ignore the light, because I think the lighter coloured is irrelevant. This light coloured in game week 35. I think the double will be 36, but so let's roll as if the double's in game week 36. So double game week 34s has been announced. We've got Liverpool, who are doubling against Fulham and Everton, Arsenal, who are doubling against Wolves and Chelsea, Bournemouth, who are doubling against Villa and Wolves, Palace, who are doubling against West Ham and Newcastle. We've got Wolves, who are doubling against Arsenal and Bournemouth, Everton against Forest and Liverpool, and Sheffield United against Burnley and Man United. We've also got Spurs, who blank. Very important to note that. Spurs will then have a double game week against Chelsea in game week 36 or 35, but almost guaranteed to be 36. It will be one of these game weeks because they've already announced all the extra fixtures and this, that, and the other. So it will be 35 or 36 when they have a double. And game week 37, therefore, almost certainly 99% likely. Basically consider it nailed on if you're making your planning, because they have to go into another game week, and 37 is the game week which is allocated for these fixtures, right? This is when it happened. Chelsea, Spurs, Man City, Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle will double in game week 37. Now, I don't know about you, Baz, but the way that I digested all of this is I think there's a load of different chip strategies.
Mhm.
I genuinely don't think there is one clear cut, you must do this and you must do that. This is where you're going to definitely get more points and whatever else. Anybody who has wildcarded already, I think you're going to find it depends, obviously it's team dependent. I think there's quite a good chance that you'll find it easier to, if you're free hitting 29, to bench boost in 34. More likely, if you're free hitting 29, seems to be where you probably find it easier generally. So if you're free hitting 29 and you've already wildcarded, bench boost in 34 seems to make sense. Whereas if you haven't already wildcarded, you can wildcard either this week or next week. I would be advising to then either bench boost in 34 or 37 or free hit vice versa. I know there's an argument to free hit in a couple of these other game weeks because of the setup, but yeah, it's very, very team dependent. I always like to bench boost a little bit earlier in the season if it's possible, and wildcard closer to the bench boost so you can set it up better. But yeah, there's a couple of different type of, and let me just use Spurs as an example on this graphic here. Let me use Spurs as an example, as a team that your strategy almost depends fully on if you're going to invest in them or not. So Spurs' fixtures for the rest of the season are Luton at home, West Ham away, Forest at home, Newcastle away, blank, Arsenal at home, double game week 36, Liverpool, Chelsea, double game week 37, Burnley at home, City at home, and Sheffield United away in game week 38, right? If you are planning on a free hit in game week 34, then actually them as a team are someone who you would be quite likely to invest in. Now, let me explain why. Luton, West Ham, Forest, and Newcastle are kind of a bit of whatever mid-table side this season, are 4 teams that you're happy with your Spurs assets playing against. They're going to blank in 34, but you're free hitting anyway. You've got Arsenal at home in 35, which is obviously not a great fixture. Double game week, Sheffield United away. So you've only really got a tough fixture there in game week 35 for Spurs. Really. Like, you've obviously got Liverpool away in 36, but they also play Chelsea. So they've got 2 double game weeks. So you've only really got one tough fixture there. Now, let me show you the example as if you're going to free hit in 37. If you free hit in 37, then Spurs have got these 3 fixtures in Newcastle away and blank, and then have Arsenal, then have a relatively tough double game week. You're free hitting in 37 anyway, and then you have a good fixture in 38. So you're not actually that bothered about having Spurs assets in 34, 33, 34, 35, and even that much in 36. Because they've got a double. Doesn't really matter. One of them's Liverpool away. So your strategy, from if you're free hitting one week and bench boosted another, and what it can make a huge difference to who you're going to invest in. So what I would suggest you do is have a look at the fixtures and the runs for the rest of the season, and just pencil. You're almost going to have to commit now to what strategy you're going to play. That's my take on it. You might not even have to commit now. You might have to commit after game week 30 if you want a wild card in 31. But then you have to really know your colours to the mast, because I do think it makes a big difference which way you're gonna swing. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, I was only half listening because I don't have a free hit left, but yeah, it does. Yeah.
So without a free hit left, a team like Spurs probably aren't as attractive to you to invest in. You're going to have, with Luton, West Ham, and Forest in the next 3. You're probably going to want to maybe have a Son or a Maddison. Don't get me wrong, but you're not going to be bothered about doubling up or even trebling up on them. that's what I mean by this. You're going to potentially invest in one player. Arsenal, for an example, right now, I mean, they've actually got quite a good run in for the rest of the season. Following on from City away, I won't go through all of the games, but it's this fixture ticket that Ben Crellin's done is rated based on home and away form, and a lot of green for Arsenal. Liverpool have got a really good run in. So even if you wanted to wildcard now, you're probably tripling up on Liverpool if you know which 3 to pick. But yeah, Baz, I'll come to you because I've waffled on for a bit. We need to hear a different voice on the pod. What's your take on potential strategies here?
So obviously, I'll probably explain my strategy. So obviously, my team's kind of set up already to be okay for 30. So I'm potentially looking at bringing a Chelsea player in. Doughty's obviously got a flag on him. Reguilon's obviously suspended, so I'm tempted by Gusto, but obviously he's got an illness. Or I could go attacking and obviously potentially like get rid of Morris and get Jackson in, who's picking up some good form. For obviously, because they're playing Burnley at home. And obviously I ain't got Palmer, so obviously I want Palmer. So I could get rid of Bailey and put Palmer in. That's quite an easy move. But Aston Villa's got a good team playing Wolves at home. So yeah, it's a lot of thought process for me just at this moment of time. But going forward, after my wild card on 31, I'll be going bench boost 34 because I like the fixtures. I think they're a lot better than what 37s are. And then obviously potentially either free it in 37, or depending on what my team's looking at, I could potentially free it on 35 because all my team are playing either each other or they've got a relevantly hard fixture. And then pick it like these obscure teams, like, for example, Wolves at home against Luton, or obviously City, Forest away, Newcastle, even picking up Man United assets as well. So they're players that I probably won't have in my potential team, but obviously with a free hit, I could potentially pick them up and I won't be worried about it. So that is another potential option on that because obviously the tricky fixtures that they've got. So yeah, so that is my go-to, either 35 or potential 37 for a free hit. And then obviously bench boost 34 because the fixtures look a lot better and definitely tripling up on Liverpool. Unsure obviously how I'm going to go about it because Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to potentially be back for that fixture. So obviously Bradley's out the equation for a cheap defender. Kelly, obviously he's going to be potentially my wild card at 3.8 because him and Areola do a good rotation. Same with Dubravka. So yeah, so it was either them 3 keepers because as we touched upon, Alex, keepers and defenders aren't even knowing. There's only 2 defenders in the top 20, high scoring, and then obviously goalkeepers wise, there's none. So with that, obviously, what's the point of wasting all your money in them type of players? Rotation wise, you could. I think I did a little draft, and I think my most expensive defender I had was 4.2, and I was actually happy with that because the rotation I had was Bramthwaite, Richards, Mengi, for example. They're a few of the players that I looked at have a good rotation in fixtures, and I could get a minimum of 3 players out there. So, and obviously I have all my attacking prowess going forward. So that's obviously how I'm going to potentially plan going forward on that front, is go cheap in defence, cheap in goalkeeper, and then go premium, near enough all the way through my midfield and attack. So yeah, and see how that goes, because at the end of the day, I need to potentially catch up in the league and obviously improve my overall ranking. And I think that's a good way of going forward by just going all guns blazing, kind of. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I was looking at trying to just get a look at your team, Scott, for who you've got set up for this week. It's the Robertson injury is quite interesting for you, isn't it? Because you've got Simicast coming back in for you, haven't you, this week? Is Cash injured? I don't know, but it's
Yes,
just it's yeah, he's injured, isn't he?
Hamstring.
Yeah. it's just interesting to see how everyone's teams are set up. If you've already used your wild card and you've already used your free hit, and that's going to be the case for a really good handful of people, then looking at the run of fixtures, Liverpool are the obvious team to back this week. Chelsea are relatively. I mean, you talk about Jacksons of the world and this, that, and the other. Maybe even Augusto, because obviously he's really good value. But if you don't have Palmer, he's the most obvious transfer in the world this week. You got Burnley at home, followed by Man United, but that's still at home, and that's fine for scoring goals for Chelsea. Followed by Sheffield United, and then they don't blank the rest of the season, and they have 2 doubles. It's just Palmer is the player. You've got to bring him in if you don't have him, I think, this week. I think that's just one of the more obvious transfers that we've got. And then it just depends who else you want to bring in. If you sat there right now and you didn't free hit, but you had Muniz, up front for Fulham. The next 2 fixtures, Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest. You might be able to hold off a little bit longer in terms of wildcarding. Scott, do you have any idea about what your plans are going to be moving forward with the team that you've got? Have you had a look at your squad yet?
Not really. No, I took my ages to log in.
So for example, right, you've already got Palmer this week. You've got Solanke at home to Everton. You've got Watkins at home to Wolves. You've got Haaland already playing. You've got Gordon at home to West Ham. Simicastle coming at home to Brighton. Yeah, you have got Saka and Foden that are playing each other, and a couple of injuries at the back. For me, relatively obvious not to free hit this week and not to wildcard this week and to wildcard next. I think looking at your squad.
No need. But I looked at that for this week. Wildcarding probably next week. Like I say, looking at getting those Liverpool, maybe Salah and someone maybe in next week. So they've got a lovely run of fixtures, like I say, in the double game week coming up. Another team that sort of caught my eye a little bit, if I was going to free hit next week, is Wolves. They've looked really good this season. So maybe look at getting a Wolves asset in as well. The Arsenal at home is a tough fixture in a double, but Bournemouth at home not so much. Burnley, West Ham, Nottingham Forest, that's a nice run as well. So they're the kind of teams that have caught my eye sort of a little bit there. But yeah, this week it's not too bad. Maybe just the one transfer, use the free transfer on someone, and then look at wildcarding. What I will say is, obviously we talk about me being quite a very casual fantasy player. When we're a few weeks away from a double game week, and I know I've not got a free hit left, I will be looking at that double game week. Even if you're a casual player, when you've not got a free hit, just to be like, when it comes around, I'll just press the free hit button and do what I want. You kind of want to be looking now. When you do your wildcard team, okay, I want to target Liverpool, Arsenal, Wolves, Palace, maybe assets for that double. So that's the kind of planning I would be doing, even from a very casual perspective.
Yeah.
The problem with Wolves, though, Neto's injured, Hwang's injured.
I did say, I said Wolves, Baz, and then I tried to say a player that I would think about getting in, and I couldn't. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Cunha's coming back from injury, so obviously he'd be a shout, and Sarabia probably be the two, and maybe defender like Aït-Nouri. Or obviously Sarr and goal.
Yeah, someone like Sarr in goal potentially makes sense as well. Yeah, I totally agree, Scott. Again, you look at the if you're a casual manager, and even if you haven't wildcarded already and you're gonna wildcard, then you that's why I think it's the shorter term. But you never know what's going to happen moving forward. Like by the time you get to game week 37 with Chelsea, Spurs, Man City, Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle, like you just don't know who's going to be fit and who's not, especially for half of those teams. And what I will say is that Chelsea, Spurs, Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle all of those teams, except for City, aren't in Europe anymore, or weren't to start with. So the likelihood is that those teams is that they'll have relatively settled sides. We've seen that quite consistently with Chelsea, Spurs if everyone's fit, and Man United and Newcastle have so many injuries. It's only Brighton where they likes to tinker a load, but they're out of Europe now. So will they like to tinker quite as much? Question for you on Liverpool assets then, Scott, from your perspective. Barring Salah, we have this conversation quite a lot on the podcast, don't we? Like, where else do you invest your money? You've got a Darwin's potentially an option, but you've got there's a lot of forward options, really. Diaz isn't performing. Jota's injured. Where else do you go?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think I don't know if I'd want to go. It would be maybe a Darwin Núñez, but again, do I really want to? When I look at sort of the attacking options, Watkins and Haaland are not coming out of my team unless they get injured. Because they've been Watkins got the most points this season. Who would have bet on that at this point? Haaland, but you're not taking him out. He will hit form. So and then if you get Núñez in there, that's a really expensive front three. So I know we're saying about sort of Liverpool defenders. Did you say Robertson was injured?
Yeah.
Well, I would probably be looking at a cheap Liverpool option at the back, even though I'm not loving it. Who's that?
Quansah, 4 million.
Quansah, yes.
Essentially, Joe Gomez might play left back. Tsimikas might still be on the bench.
Well, Bradley's 4.1 as well.
Yeah.
See, that would be my go-to, but it's a tough one because, like you say, it used to be okay. Robinson's injured, Tsimikas is going to play, but not now. Now you've got Quansah and Bradley. It's actually quite hard, and you've got the adaptability of Joe Gomez. Like you say, he can play pretty much anywhere on that back four. So it is a tricky one. But that's what right now. That's what I would lean towards: Salah and a cheap defensive option.
I do agree with that as well. Yeah, I mean, it depends how long Trent's going to be out for, and also someone like Robertson. But yeah, that's where I'd look as well. Probably a cheap defensive option. When you look at, we just discussed this, Baz just touched on it now in terms of wildcard. You don't want to be spending loads of money at the back, and I have this real. I'm really anti it as just FPL manager. I always have been, of putting in those players that are probably not going to be nailed. When we get to this point at the end of the season, we've got 9 game weeks left, and putting in a Bradley at 4.1 who might only play for 3 or 4 weeks, and then Trent's back, and then he's not going to get a sniff for the rest of the season. But actually,
and it's hard. It's so hard. I've had Tsimikas for like 2 months. I have not had the option. I've not had the time to take him out because there's been other, as Baz would say, fires to put out. So
it's true, and that's what makes me go, oh, I don't really want to put a 4.1 Liverpool player. But if it sounds like Trent's going to be out until game week 35, then yeah, probably will do Bradley on a wild card. Because when you look at, so we did that. Baz touched on it already again in terms of the top scoring players this season. Only 2 defenders make the top 20, and it's Ben White and Saliba. They're 5.7 and 5.8, and they're both at Arsenal, who have the best defensive records this season. Underneath that is the obvious Kieran Trippier, but then no other defender even makes the first page. I mean, I'm just gonna, we'll do it by defenders now, Baz, like you told me to do originally before I started counting. After that, it's Gabriel, shock. Then it's Trent, who's injured. Again, shock. Then it's Virgil van Dijk. Again, sorry to repeat myself, but shock. He's always in that sort of level in terms of numbers, but he's 6.5 mil. He's just too expensive. Shares their Porro at 5.8. Everyone's like, why is people going for Udogie over Porro? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Udogie is 0.8 million cheaper in a team that don't keep any clean sheets. So Porro gets more attacking returns. Evidently, he scored more points than him this season. He's also generally fitter. But yeah, Romero's underneath them at 5.1. It's really difficult, defenders. It's really difficult. You get to the point where you don't spend any money on any.
There's no shock in them top couple apart from Anderson and Mikalenko and Robinson, to be honest. But yeah, apart from that, it's all Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, and Tottenham, because obviously them two have obviously done pretty well going forward. Romero scored a few, and Porro was taking corners when Maddison was off. So yeah. So apart from that, you'd probably like, yeah, they're nailed on, as you talked about. Shock that they're up there.
I'm gonna, for a wild card, I've had Saliba since the start of the season. I think he was 5 mil. He's up to like 5.8. So I'm just gonna keep him.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna get rid of him. I wouldn't recommend bringing him in, but I'm not gonna sell him.
You got to think as well, Gabriel didn't start. I think he missed the first 3 games because I don't know if he had a lover's tiff with Arteta or what. He didn't start, did he? So
because I had him in my team, mate.
Yeah, I had him in mine as well. So
and he Captain Smug was over here with Saliba, wasn't he?
Did tell you. No, do you know what as well? You're unlucky is that because the leaks came out, and if you were a massive geek, you'd have found out, wouldn't you, as well? Because the John Stones was. I started with Stones. It was like a lot of people did, and he was dropped early. But yeah, I think in terms of defenders who have scored decent amounts of season, yeah, Branthwaite's up there with 78 points at 4.2. You know, it's about getting a cheap rotation, like you've discussed. Because yeah, I don't see any of these guys really delivering massive returns. 7th of April. Trent's apparently expected to be back, which is game week 32. So, I mean, at the moment, if that's the projection, I'm not bringing in Bradley. But yeah, it's really difficult. We'll part that any further because it's difficult to see who else you go with Liverpool. Arsenal as well, it's the same. We'll have a look in game week 31 about drafts, but you're probably looking at if you're tripling up on Arsenal, if you have Saliba and you have Saka, who's the other one you pick? Erdegaard. He's the one that's nailed. Havertz. Is he going to get rotated? It's I think as well it'll change a lot if Arsenal get knocked out of the Champions League. Because that draw's pretty tough, isn't it? Who have they got? Bayern or Real?
Bayern, Arsenal's got.
If they've got Bayern, and then City have got Real then. Because I know that top half of the draw is the top 4 favourites in the competition, wasn't it? Well, let's have a look at a few wildcard options that I've picked up from across the community. I've got this one here from FPL Focal. Now, I want to give Oscar a shout out on FPL Focal again. I've given him a few shout outs on the podcast. I think he's one of the best content creators to follow on YouTube if you are a more casual FPL manager. Videos are short, 6, 7, 8 to 10 minutes max. Plenty of information in there, pretty punchy. I think I've said it before. His voice is boring. Sorry, Oscar. It is. I don't enjoy it. Yeah, me too, but
no, I'm just saying my voice is boring as well. So
third line when I'm talking about strategy, mate. I won't worry about it. But he has a bunch of followers. Graphics are great, and he's well worth following on YouTube. If you're a casual manager, you can skip through the videos quite quickly as well. The graphics are excellent for it. So his wildcard team, he doubled up on the Chelsea defence. I've seen a few of these Petrovic's and Gustos at the back. Which is interesting. I've seen quite a few of those on the wildcard drafts. Bradley and Pedro Porro, Saka, Garnacho, Salah, Son, Palmer, Haaland, and Solanke. And then on the bench, he's got Raya, Cunha, Munoz for Crystal Palace, and Gabriel. Munoz could be Richards, whatever. I don't think he didn't really care too much about that. And he had Gabriel on the bench anyway, which is fine. This midfield and strike force seems to be incredibly common across a lot of the drafts, mainly because Solanke has Everton at home, Palace at home, Luton away, Man U at home, and then a double game week. Solanke seems like a relatively strong option. If you, a lot of people who free hit in 29 will have Solanke this week. I said you do, Scott, don't you? That's what I said earlier. Yeah. So people who free hit in 29 will have had Solanke for the double in 28. And now you sat there with Solanke, you're not going to get rid of him. You won't get rid of Watkins. And, Haaland's obviously not exactly a bad player to have in your team, is he? Crikey, even with Arsenal and Villa at home. I think that midfield seems relatively template from what I've seen. Garnacho with Man United's fixtures coming up, but also their form, and he's nailed on in the team. They seem pretty good. yeah, Salah, Saka, and Son and Palmer become affordable. Baz, anything on this one before I move on to the next one?
I like it because Watkins in it and his fixtures going forward aren't that great. Yes, he's in form and everything like that, but if he comes out of form, then you've already kind of jumped the bandwagon, and one of these hits fires like Solanke with his fixtures going forward. I think I'll probably be wildcard and not having Watkins and just gamble that he doesn't do well. My issue with it is there quite a lot of money in the goalkeepers in that.
Yeah.
And obviously defense, there's quite a lot of money in that as well, where you could potentially upgrade Garnacho, but like you touched upon, Garnacho's got some good fixtures going forward. So, and then you could potentially upgrade Cunha instead and have obviously 3 good strikers and potentially maybe get a Watkins if you downgrade Muniz, because I think he's 4.5 and go for Richards. There's 0.5, 0.6 save there. So, so yeah, that's my take on it. And obviously Bradley, Trent Alexander-Arnold potentially back 27th for April. So yeah, you're only going for a couple of game weeks.
Moving on to another one of the wildcard options. This is the one that Sam Bonfield put together from FPL Family, who does a hell of a lot of content. She's gone with Raya and Areola as the 2 goalkeepers. So I've seen a lot of Rayas. Saliba, Udogi, Zabar from Bournemouth, Gusto, Bradley, Salah, Son, Saka, Gordon, Palmer, Haaland, Watkins, Muniz. So again, a lot of similarities. No Solanke in this one, but gone for Watkins. No Garnacho in this one, but gone for Gordon, and relatively similar structure at the back there in terms of players. What I'll ask you this question, Baz, compared to these other teams. In fact, I'll show the other wildcard draft I saw as well. There's another one I saw on YouTube from one of the FPL content creators. Petrovic and Onana actually was one of the goalkeepers went for. But Gusto, Udogi, 8 Nuri, Lascelles have got to be pointed out, who'll be in for the rest of the season for Newcastle at 3.9 mil, and Gabriel. So wanting a piece of the Arsenal defence, can see in there. Everyone wants a piece of the Arsenal defence because they've got the best defence in the league and a decent run. So I do understand that point 100%. Son, Salah, Palmer, Garnacho, and Richarlison. Interesting pick, but fair enough if fit. And then at the back, up front, Haaland, Isak, and Solanke. I've seen a few Isaks as well, but yeah, it's sort of hit and miss. How many of these sort of players, these template players, Baz, the ones that we've seen across the board, will you have playing this week?
Haaland, Son. I can't remember if I've still got Saka or not. I think I got rid of him. I'm potentially looking at getting either Palmer or Gusto. Obviously got Porro. Probably about 5 or 6.
Yeah. And mainly the key players as well from that.
Yeah.
I do think this is one of the things that makes a big difference about whether you wildcard or not this week. So if I were to bring in Palmer, for an example, I would have Areola, but I would have Saliba, I'd have Porro, I'd have Saka, Son, and Palmer, and I'd have Watkins and Haaland. So I've got still quite a good structure to the team, and compare it to everybody else's, the main teams, main players out there. That's I think that's kind of what you need to do to sense check your team. If it looks good this week, hold on another week because you can have a lot more information anyway. To summarise, Baz, before we move on to the last bit, probably about differential draft, just to summarise on chip strategy. If you don't have a free hit and a wildcard left, if you have used both of them, be using your free transfers probably to navigate a bench boost in 34. If you do randomly have your triple captain left, I think Fulham and Everton in game week 34 probably is the best option that you're going to have this season to triple captain someone like Salah. But again, this is why we said to triple captain earlier in the season. None of these fixtures really stand out at you and make you go, yeah, God, I really want to triple captain a player in these weeks. Sorry. But yeah, if you have free hit, You're probably looking at a wild card, 30 or 31, bench boost 34, free at 37, or vice versa. And yeah, just plan your actions. I think that's anything to add on that, Baz, before you quickly touch on the FPL challenge game that's just been released?
Well, I was just going to say, I'll potentially look at setting up a graphic and put in my cheap goalkeepers and the rotation process and the defenders and highlight which ones that I'll potentially look at having in my team. If you wanted a 5 cheap defenders, I think the most expensive is 4.3, and that's tossing at Fulham. But I wouldn't have him. Just to summarise, my 5 that I would select that go all the way good to the season is Richard from Palace, Branthwaite, Gusto, Lascelles, and Williams. I think they've got great rotation between them to get you through to the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. FPL challenge, Baz. New game week, new game mode. What do you make of that?
To be honest, I was actually panicking, thinking they've nicked our idea for the five-side differential draft. But luckily enough, it wasn't that, and I think it's a great concept for the casual players and the people that are hunting the manager of the week. And it might actually get the statistics right in all these like multiple accounts and people like that just want to win manager of the week and take a minus 48 or something like that. And that's coming from me who took a minus 28 or something like that. With that, it's great because this week it's unlimited transfers, so you can pick all the players that you want to pick. But obviously this week it's not great for fixtures wise. You can have 5 players as well from each team instead of 3. So that's very interesting topic on that. You can also have your captain and a vice captain. And next game week, I think it's double points for strikers. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good, interesting way. And I think they've set it out now before obviously the season starts to see, is it worth continuing for next season? And
I
think it will be. I think it's going to be quite popular. So yeah, I'm liking the idea, but as I mentioned, I was worried that they nicked our idea, and we need to copyright our idea, the draft, the differential.
I think we do, to be fair, potentially. Scott, I'm interested in your take on the new FPL challenge game, because as somebody who speaks to a lot of people as well who are slightly more casual FPL managers, is it something that you'd bother with, or is it something you dip in and out with? If it's something you maybe play if you like what the look of that challenge that week, do you care?
Yeah, I don't care that much, completely honest with you. I like logging onto my team on a Saturday morning if there's a deadline, doing my transfers, and then seeing what points I get. It's for me as well. Not everyone listening to this will do the draft, but obviously we do the draft. I'm doing fairly well in the draft after that chance to compete for our league. So I am thinking about the draft as well. It does just add another game mode that I'm not sure I'll be that bothered about doing. I'll probably have a punt, but after maybe a couple of game weeks, like say there's a game week I'm not that bothered about. I think for people like me, just from my perspective, I don't know how bothered that people will be. I actually think it'll be more the really, really, really keen boys like you two that'll love it. That's just my initial thoughts on it.
I think it's interesting to hear different people's perspectives, and already on Twitter, there's FPL Kino talk of, well, have you heard the rules about the transfers? I think you can make transfers in game, like mid-game week, if you wanted to do before, and the actual deadline is when the team that you picked players actually start.
Well, that's what they do on Sky Sports Fantasy Football, isn't it?
Yeah. When the game week starts that day is when it stops, isn't it, on Sky Sports?
Yeah, you can't transfer the players out who already played, so
yeah,
as well. So just want to tell everyone that.
Yeah, which is it's just another game mode where I think one of the tactics that I saw people say was, right, well, you pick your 3 players or your 4 players and you'd bench them that would play the early games. And if they did really well, then you could just leave them because auto subs matter. And you'd pick 4 players that were injured or weren't going to play. So they'd auto sub in for them. And then if those 4 players didn't do so well, you'd sub those 4 injured players out for 4 players that would play. And it just become the most labor intensive thing ever. So which then doesn't appeal to the casual, does it?
Yeah, just pick your team, just leave it. If you're happy with that team, that's all I've done. I'm happy with my challenge team. I'm leaving it as that.
Yeah,
Not going to interfere.
It's I think it's another one of those moments where we've got a bunch of players, and it's now the opportunity to overthink it at that point. Right, should we do differential draft, Baz?
Yeah, we can do. Obviously, yeah, I'm a bit like Wales. I was disappointed and I finished bottom. Another shout out to Guy Ferguson, Mr. Differential. He beat us again, and he got 21 points from 5 players.
So he got 21 points from 5 players, and Scott, you got 16 from 11,
and he got 13 from his 5 that he picked. Bearing in mind he had regular on as well, that got -3. But Munez got most of them points at 13. So
yeah. Well, that's going to be the case, isn't it?
You say that, Alex. I'm pretty sure none of my keepers played.
Oh, did none of your keepers? Did none of your keepers play?
No.
Oh,
Trafford didn't play, did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I made regular on, I think.
Yeah, as it goes, obviously, I picked first, then Alex, then
can we just labour on the point that I did get the best score last week?
you can do,
yeah, cool. There we go. I got the best score last week.
Sorry, what was Scott's score last week from his team against? Sorry, Baz.
13. So he got 3 less than his actual free hit team.
Wow, what a weird week.
And Guy got 21.
Absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Right then, so you're first then, Baz, are you? Right.
I am, yes.
I would just like to say, well, in the last 5 minutes, I've been getting my computer up, so I've got 2 screens now.
I like that from you. Well done. So you're getting yourself prepared, and I'm already talking over to try and bide some time because I've done.
Yeah, exactly. But keep doing it, mate. Because I'm struggling as well. I'm looking. Okay, that's the seat to target.
The thing is, Baz already knows his first pick, and he's like, "Sure," so I can pick him, and then
which Chelsea player though? That's the.
Is it Chelsea though, or am I going to go crazy and pick 3 Wales players?
I don't know with you. I don't know with you, to be honest. I'm really hoping you don't pick. I really hope you don't pick this guy because this is the guy I'm going for.
I'm picking. I've mentioned that I was going to potentially put him in my team for this week. Nicholas Jackson.
Okay, fine. That's good.
4.7% owned.
Correct.
He is. I'm going to go for Muniz at 4.9% owned for Fulham.
Lovely stuff.
Oh, thanks. That's lovely stuff.
Who am I off then? Anyone's guess, really, isn't it?
It really is.
Going for you for my first picture. Yeah. I will go for. So I'll just go for Undogi. That's my 10% gone.
He's going for Uzudogis to start with. Yeah. I like it. Barry?
I'm gonna pick Brennan Johnson.
Of course you are. And I'm gonna gamble that Richarlison's fit and plays 4% owned.
Nice. I'm gonna gamble on Højlund.
Yeah, I like that one, Scott. He was my other striker down with Muniz. Very good pick there, Scotty.
I'm gonna pick because I raved about him how well he played for Wales. I'm gonna also pick Harry Wilson.
Good one. I'm gonna go for Garnacho at 9.2. I'm going to go for my player there under 10.
God, the flag's everywhere, isn't it?
It's Flag City, mate, but it always is after international because all of them are lies. And then you have to wait for the press conferences.
Yeah, I didn't want to play. I didn't want to play friendly, so I'm ill.
It literally is that way out, though, isn't it?
That's so true, isn't it? All right then. I will go for. You're a striker. Oh,
I've got a strike, yeah.
I've already got one on that.
2 midfielders and a goalie.
Oh, sorry, just give me 10 seconds.
Got my timer out.
I've got a defender. Do you say to get?
Yeah, you got Udogi.
Oh God, yeah. Richarlison's gone, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, let's go for. Do you know what? Let's go for Alexis McAllister for a bit of a laugh.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. Yeah. I thought you were going to go for. I thought you were going to go for Zaboslai then.
No, we
I'm
did,
gonna-
but he's never got any point. I've picked him most weeks.
That's what I mean. I thought you've got to go for Zaboslai.
I'm picking after the news that Sam Johnson's out for the season. I am picking Henderson.
I am going to go for. Petrovic in goal at 1.4.
Nice.
It was a flip that. Very close.
I'll go for. Yeah, I'll go Kelleher.
Yeah, that was the flip. It was like Kelleher or Petrovic. Didn't know which one to go for.
Do we have to have 2 defenders? We do, don't we?
You only have to have 1 defender, 2 midfielders.
Yeah.
You can have 2 defenders and 1 midfielder, 1 striker.
And say you've had 2 before, so it's up to you. And my last pick, I'm picking 3 Wales because I'm crazy. I'm picking Nico Williams and hoping Palace and Forest is 0-0. So
Love that. I'm going to go for my under 1 of Calvin Bassey because I like his hair.
I'm going to go for. We've got first pick the other week. It's my last pick this week. Justin Kluivert.
Brilliant. So the team.
No, wait. Yeah, sorry. No. Carry on. Sorry, I thought I cheated. I am.
So the teams are Barry. You were first pick. Your team is
Dean Henderson in goal, Nico Williams in defence, Johnson and Wilson. So basically near enough. Forest, Wales, and then Nicholas Jackson up top.
So England, Wales, and Nicholas Jackson. I like that. I've got Petrovic in goal, Bassey, Garnacho, Richarlison, and Muniz. Scotty?
I can't remember. I've got Kelleher, Undogi. I'm doing all right, actually. Kelleher, Undogi, Justin Kluivert. I've got someone else.
Alexis McAllister.
And then Hoyland up front.
Yeah. And actually, it's not a bad team considering you waffled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, miles better than mine.
The Kluivert pick's really fun, but I like that one. Let's do it. Like, he's got a home to Everton. Boom. Why not? One of the best defences in the league, Everton. Right, so we've got the fixtures for the weekend. We're going to do captains before we wrap up. Newcastle West Ham's early kickoff deadline is Saturday the 30th of March at 11 a.m. Make sure you pay close attention to the press conferences on Friday to find out who's actually injured and who isn't. Newcastle West Ham 12:30, Bournemouth Everton, Chelsea Burnley, Forest Palace, Sheffield United Fulham, Spurs and Luton, Villa Wolves, Brentford Man United. A couple of later games on the Saturday, exciting Easter weekend, a 5:30 and an 8 o'clock. I guarantee we lose at Brentford at 8 o'clock, just so you know. Bet on Brentford. It's the sort of game we lose. Liverpool, Brighton, Man City, Arsenal, Super Sunday. Sounds like an absolute cracking Easter Sunday, that one. Hopefully I'll get a chance to sit down and watch some of those games. Let's discuss captains, shall we? Because I think there's quite a few options this week.
There's a lot.
Let's start with let's work our way down the list. Chelsea, Burnley, Cole Palmer. Got to be an option this week in terms of a captaincy.
If you want to go rogue, you could potentially have Jackson.
Oh, that would make me feel sick.
You probably won't be doing that. I know I wouldn't. I'll be obviously having Palmer over Jackson all day long.
Fulham away at Sheffield United. We're still, uninformed Fulham against a pretty poor Sheffield United side.
You'd be brave to pick Muniz as captain, wouldn't you?
You would be brave, considering also you've got Spurs at home to Luton, who you could have your Sons or even your Madisons, but probably Youngman Son. But be careful if Richarlison is fit, because Son probably will be playing wide in that game. So it's a bit of a debate. Villa at home to Wolves, could be some goals in that game. I don't think you'd captain Watkins over Palmer, really. And then, you've got Liverpool at home to Brighton, which is almost guaranteed goals, I think, in that game. Where's your armband at the moment, Scott?
I'm just looking at my team on screen. It's officially still Sam Dominic Solanke. It's from a double game week, isn't it? I should be captain. That one well. Pre changes, he'll be getting slapped on Palmer. But instead, potentially bringing in maybe a Salah, or maybe saying I am going to use one. I would transfer this week before wildcarding, so maybe a Spurs asset. Tricky one. This will be the game week where Haaland gets a hat trick, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. He's going to smash out to pieces and ruin
He
season.
had a shocking international as well.
Yeah,
came off injured and he missed a penalty as well.
Did he miss a pen? All right. I was about to rip into his country there, but fair.
Mine's on Palmer at the moment. Well, actually, saying that, I should say no, it's not. It's on Son at the moment, but I'm going to bring in Palmer and put it on him. I haven't got Palmer at the moment. Baz?
I'll probably be doing the same as you, Alex, but I might go rogue. Sometimes I like doing it, and I've got giddy because Wales disappointed me. So I might even bring Jackson and captain him.
Imagine the scenes.
I bet you don't.
Just all talk, innit?
Well,
yeah.
none of us,
here.
Mate, none of us are winning the league. None of us are in any cups, and the cup doesn't start yet. So,
it's like me bringing in Hudson-Odoi. Never brought him in, did I?
Brilliant, love that. We're sat here in all of these lovely cup competitions. We got eliminated as the podcast team last week in the Arrows Cup and the FPL League Cup, with a great free hit team for the All in Football Podcast League or Football Podcast team. The League Cup for us, fixtures will be determined at the end of game week 32, and your opponent in 33 will be determined at that point. So the Cup starts in game week 33 for the podcast team, for the podcast league. So that's when it all starts again for us, boys. That's when we stand a chance of winning something again. The Podcast League Cup, game week 33. That's it, chaps. Fit quite a lot into there. There's a lot of strategy, a lot of chat, and I think it'll be even clearer next week once we've got a better idea of who's fit, who's not, and we can have a look at the long view again in terms of wildcard drafts. Scott, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Barry, thanks for joining us.
And thank you.
Don't forget to follow us, social media platforms, All in Football Pod, for P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't also forget to check out the Fantasy Premier League Facebook page that Barry is now an admin of. So if we'll try to put a link to that Facebook page at the bottom of the wording on YouTube and the wording as well that I put together, the blurb on Spotify and also on the Instagram page. Yes, All in Football Pod, for P, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and with 5-star review where you get your podcast from. And don't forget to like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Thank you ever so much for everyone for tuning in. Good luck. Let's have a better week than last week, and goodbye for now.